Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is January 18, 2021. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast called I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Thank you, Rob. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Richard Kerr. Thank you so much. Richard, where are you calling in from?
Specifically Bromont, Quebec.
How cool is that?
It-
And I'm in Venice, California. And the first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
well, health covers everything, but peace of mind.
Oh, I like that. Both of those are great. Richard, what's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Oh, perfect question. Radio,
Radio. I'm a radio guy too. That's
AM,
amazing.
FM, portable transistor radio. I listen to radio all night when I sleep.
I am there with you. I love it. That's where we have a commonality there. Radio is a great medium.
I
And
never shut it off.
and so why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Well, in my case, I mean, it was. I've spent a lot of time alone as a kid and recently as adult. So I like the company of radio. I just like something on, and I like the randomness of the information I get, the uncurated uh, information that I get, I guess. And uh, come to think of it, I mean, I've used that all my life as a form of education. Just
Right.
the sort of randomness of talk radio, uh, NPR up here, CBC. Uh, and there's sort of a context to it. I don't have much of a formal education, so I had to get my information somewhere.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the mid '70s sort of thing, or the early '70s rather.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I'll give you a perfect example. I was on a hike, a nature hike once, and we went through a swamp, and I got one of those leeches on my leg. And I came home, and people said, "Oh, you got to light a match, and then it will let go." And it sort of burns your skin a little. It's not a big deal. And then my neighbor said, "Oh, all you have to do is put Vicks Vapo Rub on there because the cantho will make the leech let go without a match." I said, "Where'd you learn that?" She goes, "Talk radio."
Yeah, yeah, no,
Because
exactly.
she was like that. She was raised latchkey kid, and raised listening to the radio, and it's education. So the third question about this information line is this need or want to collect information more innate in humans or more invented?
I'll say innate.
Yeah.
I think I mean, I'm a poor man's McLuhan, as you know. But when asked a question like that, and especially by students, rather than just jumping to opinion, I try to think of the structure of it all. And in that case, what you're asking about information, I just imagine myself as a living in the woods 1,000 years ago, and I would get up in the morning and I would want some sort of information. Is it what's the weather going to feel like today? Is it this sort of thing? Where am I going to find water today? So I think it's innate, and I
Yeah.
think we've cultivated it to an absurd level at this point with all the
Yeah.
media. So
No, and I appreciate your verb cultivate because these some of these questions at the beginning are sort of neuroscientific or whatever, but and it's not that you have to be an expert in any field. It's more what your hunch is. And it is very McLuhan-esque. It's like I'm not asking you to take a point of view so much as just look at the big picture and what's your guess or your impulse. So do thoughts create emotions?
Well, yeah, I guess the pedestrian answer would be yes. It would be the conventional wisdom on that. I'm trying to find, I'm asking myself, can you have emotions without thought? But that's boy, that seems like a thin line to me. So I'll say yeah,
Do you
thought.
your observations of humans in general, and again, I say it's both and it depends. Are humans more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Well, I hope feeling.
Yeah.
I hope feeling. I mean, you're asking the wrong guy. I work amongst professors, right? But yet I don't feel like I'm a professor. So it's, you know, there's way
Well,
too much
I
there's
would
way
say I'm
too much thinking and not enough feeling at university.
right. That's what I'm saying. I think I'm asking the right guy. Is thinking more innate or more invented?
Well, it's innate again. It's a reflex, I think.
Yeah.
You
Now,
know,
Richard,
I think it's all part of your physicality. I don't think it's separate.
yeah. Now, Richard, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
I don't know what I think. Think is the tricky word. What I think until I experience it.
right. Very good experience. Can humans think without language?
Well, they must be able to. I would at one level,
Yeah.
and I think I've been in a state several times where I yeah that I've been without language and in a certain state. I don't know, but
Well, Chomsky has an interesting thing. He says language is not just words, it's a culture, it's a tradition, it's a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do, Richard, when language doesn't work, when language breaks down?
well. Once again, it's sort of the milieu that I teach in. I speak English, but I teach in a French and Latino and Middle Eastern cultures, right?
Yeah.
Like, so there's only maybe one student in my class that's you know English is the first language. My sense is you slow the communication down. I mean, I think of the little bit of traveling I've done where I've been in situations where language isn't an option. Uh, that can induce chaos when people go back and forth, and so my experience is you just slow it down. You slow everything down. Maybe you start using the hands, you know. But I think you got to slow it down.
I love that.
You got to slow communication down.
Yeah, I know. I love that answer. It's been amazing because I just added that question recent months and I haven't gotten that answer. And it's brilliant because I'll give you a perfect example. I was in Paris once and I couldn't speak French, but I we were trying to get to the subway or get directions, and I goes, "Parlez-vous anglais?" And the French person went, "Oui," and I goes, "How do you get to the subway station?" And they went slower, because I said the question so fast.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a perfect example of me that slower thing. So here's two questions from 1950 by Alan Turing. Is thinking a function of the soul?
Mm, I'm going to go no, no.
Okay. And his second one was, can machines think?
Oh, fuck. Uh, I mean, I, I, I I'm essentially, I'm just. It's not that I'm not interested in technology. I just don't go there for some reason. Uh, I would hope not. You
Yeah,
know, and
yeah,
I mean, whatever we're headed towards with AI and all that stuff, that I sort of, it's over there because it kind of yeah. I'm glad I won't be around for the manifestation of that world. So
yeah,
I like humans. I like humans. It's I don't need very many machines. I don't own a cell phone yet. I teach digital
yeah,
cinema. I just don't own machines, right?
yeah,
They break. Machines from when I was a kid, if it was a machine, it broke, and therefore it let me down.
yeah.
You
That's
know,
that's good.
I'd be happy to use my friend's machine for an hour for what I needed it for. And then, so anyway,
Oh, that was good because I made up an aphorism when I was a kid. It goes, "If it works, break it the American way." But I realized McLuhan really nailed it. He said, "If it works, it's obsolete." I mean, we must be the 2 only people in the world that don't have cell phones, but we live in a cell phone world, so it's not like we're without cell phones. We're still getting the residual feelings of it in the environment it creates, but we just don't need to do this all day, you know.
yeah, I
No.
mean, the worst thing about cell phone is there's no more payphones.
I you love this. I did a art project once many years ago where I proposed that people super glue their cell phone to their hand. It was a it was a joke and people took it seriously. They go, "That's a good idea." Richard, you really get what I'm after. So this is beautiful. Thank you for your time. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
um, I did an installation a few years back that was called Snap Crack Pop, More Being, Less Meaning. So
Wow.
yeah, or you could switch it around, less meaning, more being.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think that might get us there. What was the question again? It
Well,
was
that answers it.
happiness or
Yeah. Do you more pursue meaning or more pursue happiness?
well, happiness. I mean, but happiness is so frivolous, of
Yeah.
a sounding word beside meaning.
Yeah.
I mean, happiness is for me is a good day in the studio, but that also gets me meaning at the same time. So
Yeah.
you know, you can
Yeah.
double down on this stuff.
That's it, double down. It's like a lot of this is you can't separate feelings from thinking from feelings, but we did because we invented the words. But essentially, they're pretty, it's like Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. And I'm like, good luck. How do you turn off your thinking? You're doing the most sensuous thing a human can do, but your brain still sort of wants to think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Pretty hard to turn the brain off.
Yeah. Does the brain, speaking of the brain, does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it?
Oh, I think it's once again, if it's inside of this, it's bubbling away.
Yeah.
It's not something that comes from without, in my mind.
Right.
Like
What?
I mean, it's pretty simple for me. We're just another organism floating through this thing called the planet Earth, and there's monkeys and there's tigers and there's dogs and there's us and there's trees and there.
That's like some people think Deepak Chopra is just this new agey guy, but he actually is a smart thinker. And a couple years ago, he did a Playboy interview, and I love this thing he said. It sort of resonates with what you said. He says, "A person's identity is a socially induced hallucination. There's no such thing as a person. There's a bundle of consciousness that's constantly in flux."
Yeah, that's kind of when I'm in faculty meetings. I trance out and I look at my colleagues, and that's kind of I just see this stuff, and it's not it's real. It's kind of real, but it's not, and it'll
Right.
be gone someday. And it's we're all nothing. We're just we're putting in all this activity, and
I love it. So what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
oh, speed of thought, unquestionably.
Nice.
I mean, I played enough sports to know that there's just how thought. I mean, yeah, thought
Well,
reaction.
we're gonna get into that. I'm glad you brought up sports, and there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions. But Richard, that one you got right. Thank you. So, the poet Audre Lorde said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Yvonne Rainer responded, said, "You can if you expose the tools." What new tool do you suggest? And just to set it up, I introduce some of these questions with cute quotes. It doesn't mean you have to apply the quote. It's basically, what new tool do you like? Do you suggest? Or excites you now? And if you want to apply it to dismantling the master's house, that's fine. You don't have to. It's your choice.
Well, I don't think the master's house is a fixed thing necessarily.
Yeah.
I'm trying to apply this once again to teaching, and I guess it's not a tool so much, but if I push my students generally in a way, because they're so surrounded, and they're in the early generations of this digital culture.
Yeah.
I try to get them, and I try to get myself to keep working with my hands, with your hands, make things with your hands, balance it off. It's like a diet, it's got to be balanced. And I sort of caution them about going totally electric. And it's good to work with the hands on a physical level, and that gets you tools, I guess.
No,
And
that's a good example, because the tactility of touching, hand movement, that is a tool. That's what the craftsmen excel at. They use their hands. So that was good, because tool implies a lot. I mean, some people go intuition or imagination. Some people say, NFTs, whatever. So that was good. But now I just added last week, what new toy do you suggest? And again, it's not don't, get too carried away with the word new. It could be just, what toy do you suggest?
yeah, I'm having a hard time getting around a toy because it I don't indulge in those sort of things. If I could substitute toy just for something related to curiosity and newness, something to do tomorrow, that would be the toy.
That's
If,
fine.
if
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It,
It's like anticipatory mindfulness, I call it. Like
I can't reduce it to any sort of material thing
yeah.
that you know. I
What
mean,
do you,
if I was though, there's nothing like a good brand new rubber ball in your hand to bounce around for,
hey, that
red,
is
white, and
good.
blue rubber ball. So if you were to buy me a toy, that would be the best toy.
I like that. I think that's a good one. Okay. So what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Well, I mean, I go to bed because I'm not worrying.
Oh
For
my
start,
god, you
for,
flipped that one
I mean,
perfect.
it's like I have a routine that gets me there. Uh, you got to clear that stuff out. You know, you can't go to bed worrying. I
Yeah.
mean, I had an old coach, that took me aside when I was like 14 and said, "Oh, Richard, worrying doesn't accomplish anything." So yeah, I don't worry about too much. Once I start worrying, I start doing something about it.
Oh, that is good.
You
Richard,
know,
you're
get rid of that. That's just gonna waste your time. This worrying stuff.
dude, you got a great attitude. I really appreciate it. And so you were fortunate enough to videotape Marshall McLuhan in the mid 70s on reel to reel black and white video. And he learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're detecting and broadcasting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about them. So, Marshall's main line was, why do we ignore? One of his main questions is, why do humans ignore the hidden psychic effects of their inventions, even though artists are broadcasting them to them?
Trying to unpack that question there. Well, once again, in my small sample size at the university is and I work in the fine arts where there should be progressive minds. People are afraid of new ideas.
Yeah.
Um, and going back to the beginning of your quote, the McLuhan, the antennae, the artist, and all that sort of stuff, I think that needs a little bracket around it. I mean, he said that a long time ago. I think there was a different sense of an artist back then. So I would put a little bracket around. I would say in this day, there's a few artists, but I wouldn't trust all artists as the antennae. You
Right.
know,
Oh, yeah.
I can't write a blank check for all artists in the world. There's good
Right.
ones and bad ones.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. That's good. Yeah, and I didn't mean to imply a value judgment like all the broadcasts are doing that job, but some are, and even people who aren't artists are broadcasting the hidden psychic effects. It's just people becoming aware of how cell phones have shaped us. That's what it's not whether you love or hate cell phones, it's like how have they shaped us instead of just using the tool and letting it become you. Like Marshall's great line, we shape our tools, then they shape us.
Yeah. Well, once again, I don't see it in my workplace, and that's where we're supposed to be working out these ideas.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, and we're in a technology heaven at a university. So it's yeah. I'm as I end my teaching career, and I see this digital culture emerging with the next generations. I'm anxious to see where it goes, but I don't think we're helping them too much as professors. I mean, we have this unique situation where we're all analog trained, the group I work with, yet we're trying to understand this digital culture, right? And
Yeah.
I'm into it. Let's, I think I sort of get it, but it's yeah, it's frustrating without getting into it. Yeah.
But are you actually anticipated this question, Richard? Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Well, I'm not afraid of new ideas.
Yeah.
I'm an Aquarian, so it's I sort of dine out on new ideas, but no, old ideas just are frustrating. I mean, if you're an educator, if you put that context into it, I mean, there's old truisms, I suppose, you know, that just stand the test of time, and you know, I think students should understand history from that point of view, not necessarily respect it, but understand it. So, uh, but no, the game is new ideas. It's coming at you. It's coming at us as we speak. You know.
Well, two things you just invoked was one is Louis Buñuel said, "I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it." Any comment?
Oh, that's the filmmaker. So that's all wrapped in time. You
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, no, once again, the truth isn't an island in the ocean where you land on it and it's there. You know, it's more like Jello. You put it in your hands and it's.
I like that. And here's a McLuhan line that I'm always trying to figure out. I'm curious your thoughts on it. Everybody experiences far more than they understand. Yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the first part of it for sure.
But I think he's saying that understanding should shape our behavior, but usually experience shapes it. So, like if a kid comes in from the cold and you're the parent and you go, "Don't touch the stove, it'll burn your hand." That's experience. Otherwise, you could just say, "Let me teach you the dynamics of heat. Understand that your hands can get really close to the stove and warm your hands up."
Well, if this helps, I mean, uh, once again, because of my education background and the way I teach, it's all about experiential learning.
Yeah.
Like I can't learn it. You can't, like today, trying to get on this link and stuff. It wasn't until I had the instructions written down that I could go through it and
Right.
sort of teach myself. I mean, all the, I mean, it's no, I put a big value on experiential learning, and
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, it brings up a thought that once again, and this is almost once again, poor man McLuhan. McLuhan had these probes when he taught. Out of humbleness, I reduced them to bumper stickers, and
Yes.
and I tell my students as an example, uh, it's experience, not opinion. And I won't teach anything uh, that I only have an opinion about. I'll only teach stuff that I have experience with.
Great.
So, and there's a big difference in the classroom.
Yeah.
Opinions are pretty thin and they can be poked through, and students feel that, right?
Yeah.
It's thin. It's like a Kleenex, a wet Kleenex, but when you relate something that has experience behind it, it's authentic, as it were.
Really well put. I got it. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Um, I don't like to break it down. I mean, I used to think about this at one point in my life all the time. I mean, I think everyone goes through that uh, reanalysis of their first 5 years of their life, sort of thing. And for me, it's an experience, and it's a place, and it's a journey, and it's not rather than one event.
Right.
So
Beautiful.
I've taken all the as it were, the highlight reels that I remember, because as I thought about it, because I lost my parents early, I have no reliable narrator in my family. So after a while, as you age, you distrust your memory.
Yeah.
You know, so I tend to have put these all together in one sort of kind of, lack of a better word, a cinematic type scene
Yeah.
that highlights the best of those years. And there's
Yeah.
nothing negative allowed in that world.
It's beautiful. They call it a sizzle reel.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. There we go.
Richard sizzle reel. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Um, I'm not speaking for the masses, but it's a curse. There's no future in my past.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's handy to remember things, I guess. But I'm not. And in my early family, we weren't. We're very much a family that liked the new things. We never went to the Pioneer Village. We never went, to Frontierland at Disneyland. We went to Tomorrowland. So
Yeah.
it was that orientation in the family. We're just, it's just, yeah. And I'm not much, memory. I don't, and it's a big thing in my field, this idea in cinema, time and memory. And I never
Yeah.
got it myself.
Dude, I really appreciate this. This is fun, and you get what I'm after.
Listen, I said this to wrap that thought up. Once again, I say to my student, I says, listen, I'll take a chance on tomorrow over any best day that I ever thought I had.
Yes.
And I asked them, would they do that? Because everyone's talking about the good old days, the best day. I go, well, tomorrow, hey.
That is a great line. I'll take a best chance on tomorrow over any past great
Best
day.
day. Yeah.
Best day. Best
Yeah.
day. Yeah. That is a great line. And Richard, tell me one, this is two parts. Tell me one role model or someone who had an impact on you within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family. And just briefly, what was that impact?
So, okay. So it's immediate family and then outside the family.
Yeah, and just one person who was sort of like a role model or they had an impact on you, and what was that impact?
You know, nothing profound. Uh, once again, there's a context to this, that I lost my father when I was 15. So he was an ex-baseball player in the Dodger organization. So there was all that sort of stuff to build up a mythology and an influence on your father and all that stuff. But later in life, maybe more my mother, but she died a few years later. So it's I don't have a lot to work with.
What did you get? What do you think you got from your mom mainly?
My mother?
Yeah.
Never lie.
Never lie. That's good.
Simple.
Yeah. And so then outside your immediate family, just one person who had an impact on you.
Well, once again, because if you don't have a family when you're a teenager going forward, you seek friends.
Yeah.
And in my case, it was I moved around a bit. Not, I just moved around the community. I mean,
Yeah.
So I always had pockets of friends. Some were sports friends, some were art friends, this kind of thing. And so I was lucky all through my life not to have any one single friend, but overlapping friends that sort of built a solid line through life that I could count on. That at this point, they're all one friend, because they all offered the same thing.
That's beautiful. Were you raised a particular religion?
Well, I was, yeah, I was baptized, confirmed. What's the other one? Yeah, what do you call it? Anglican, the Church of England.
And do you pray?
Episcopalian, I think you call it down there.
Yeah, Episcopal. Do you pray?
Yes, I do pray at night. I
Yeah.
have a very structured pray that I've said since I've been a teenager.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
I mean, that sounds like a Joan Rivers joke or something. No, I mean, it, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I want to hit the hi hat here. I don't know. I
That's
mean,
good.
that's.
No,
I
it's
mean,
more like
to answer your question, I mean,
yeah.
I want to think that I've led a decent life. That I
Right.
haven't, that I haven't crossed anyone too badly, or I haven't,
Yeah.
that I've been an honest guy. Just basic shit.
Yeah. No, that's
I don't.
beautiful.
You can't expect too much out of this life.
Yeah. I love what you said. It sounds like a Joan Rivers joke. It's more like a Phyllis Diller joke. My favorite is he, he said, "Housework can't kill you, but why take a chance?"
Yeah, yeah,
And so I have a lecture that's called "Cinema Can't Kill You, but Why Take a Chance?"
yeah. There you go.
So, do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Well, okay. Let me try. Let me take a chance in this. If there are evil people, they probably there's probably something clinically wrong with them.
Yeah.
In this day and age of categorizing people and measuring people, uh, evil as some sort of entity out there, I just don't know.
Yeah.
I and I refuse to. I guess there is evil people. I mean, I've never. When I come across a word like evil that we've used all our life, like if I come across it in class, I immediately put it up on the screen. I go, let's look at the definition of this.
Yeah.
Let's go McLuhan on this again. Let's go back to the structure and let's slow this down, because evil is a word like hate that I don't allow in my classroom, right? You can't use those words. It's too lazy.
Yeah.
I think I don't even know what evil means now. You got me thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's
No, I think you captured it, and it's interesting because it flows right into the next question, which is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But I'm going to set it up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts, but the basic question, Richard, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, enemy. it there's enemy in the workplace at a meeting, and there's enemy in the streets
Yeah.
that causes you harm. Uh, had a taste of both, lots. You know, two different circumstances. And some in the streets, and I've traveled a lot in your area at night, and in the 80s and stuff, and yeah, no, that's serious business on
Yeah.
the streets.
Yeah.
Um, in a meeting, a faculty meeting, it's gamesmanship and all those sayings that you recited. Yeah, they're all well known, and yeah, they're yeah, you don't let your enemy know if I mean, you know,
Yeah.
there's a thing you go with your enemy. You can go with a thing called a glass pole, where you just let all the light and energy go through you, and they have nothing to work with.
Beautiful. It's exactly what Ruben Guevara told me the other day. He said it's like you're a cloud and you just let it go through you. And if you stop it, then you're in trouble.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think McLuhan said something about. Well, he said something about everything, but tactility, hybrid, fusion, all that sort of stuff, friction, and
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I don't know if that was the whole question. I forget
No,
if
that's you did. That was fine.
there was a
Yeah.
two-parter there. I can't remember.
No, you did it. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin, and he ran a movie theater called Volta Cinema. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
I kind of agree. I don't. I've been to a handful of plays in my life. I don't go to movies. Um, I mean, I can the theater of life. Hey, listen, I mean, back to some of the greatest days that I had, kind of thing, would be on Venice Beach, just sitting on a bench watching people.
That's my only life.
It's like it's great. You'd sit there and I'd have a drink, and I just boy, it was just I mean, it's in my films. The shots of Venice Beach, just people going by, but you know. So it's I don't need. I mean, the minute I step out my door, it's a movie.
Yeah.
It's I mean, maybe that's the trained filmmakers. I tend to visually put a frame around everything I see. Whether it's a walk in the forest, every once in a while you're reframing and that sort of thing, and so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not a big consumer of theater or movies or
Yeah.
books or anything like that. It's, you know, yeah, I'd rather deal with what's right in front of me in the next 5 minutes.
Right. And Richard, you anticipated a question I'd love to ask you is how did you form your framing aesthetic? You know, where did it come from? Because you
Baseball, learning to hit a baseball when I was a kid.
oh, learning to hit a baseball. That is a great answer.
It's called the strike zone,
Yeah.
and it's all things visually. I claim come from hours and hours and hours and hours of trying to hit a baseball, eventually a curveball. That hand to sight, the distance, the 90 feet.
Yeah.
It's all material. The spin. You got to, that really, as a young kid, that trains you to look
Right.
and focus.
And let's go into some, you were a sports person, you were a experimental filmmaker, and you're an educator. I mean, those pretty much capture some of your callings in your life. What first had attracted you to pursue sports? Was there a tipping point where you were playing in the streets and you go, I want to do this? Or I guess your dad was a pro. Did he raise you to be aspire to follow in his footsteps? What was the tipping point for you to pursue sports like you did?
Well, there was no pushing involved, no stage management. Yeah, my father was an ex ball player, and so it was just in the house. The ball game was always on.
Yeah,
It and in the 50s there wasn't. I mean, that's what you did as a boy. A lot of boys anyway played
yeah.
sports. Uh, Eventually, I had some. By the time I was 12, 13, uh, I was showing some extra skill, and so it was just the thing to do. It was just a path to go. Never questioned it. I was just good at it. I never, in retrospect, never really liked it. You know, Otherwise I
Really?
would have perhaps stayed with it. But there was
What didn't
reasons that
you
the sports thing fell out.
what didn't you like about it?
Oh well, the sport I played, of course, Canadian was hockey. So uh, I would have rather played baseball, but it was limited, 4 months a year in Canada. Um, Baseball is a much better game. I would have. Uh, yeah, hockey is a weird one. I mean, it was just physically getting up early in the cold to go to practice at 6 in the morning when you're 12, that kind of thing. Walking to the rink with it was. You get there. I but eventually I didn't like the culture. I didn't like the teammates because I had once again friends that weren't sports people, and they were more interesting. So I was sort of trapped in this jock's body. Uh, and then when my father suddenly passed away, then the whole sports thing just fell apart. A weird psychology washed over me. I became afraid. I became very mean. It just the whole game changed. It was just an awful period, right? But then that's where I got the arts sort of. I knew there was a bigger world out there than uh,
Right.
a hockey rink or a ball field. So it was just a matter of time, and then I'm on my own when I'm 16, so it's you start
And you
meandering, and
right, you gravitated towards the arts, but let's just one more question on sports. I'm curious. Do you think competition, being competitive, is more innate or more invented?
oh, it's an and once again it's innate.
Yeah,
But I think competition's probably a misinterpreted word, an overinflated word. It
I see.
sounds aggressive,
Yeah,
but I mean, I think there's a cliche: a little competition's good.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a funny word once again, but I think if you put two people on a trail, two people start walking together, one's going to walk faster, the other's going to want to keep up, and
yeah.
who knows the I just think it's I don't think it's necessarily negative. It's perceived as a negative thing, competition,
Yeah,
other than our commercial sports world and art
yeah,
world and stuff.
yeah. Because it does
Competition in the arts is ridiculous.
it I was just
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
say, then what kicked you over? Your dad dies, you're sort of like going, "Oh, I can explore the world of arts." What was your tipping point to explore film in particular? Did you start out as a painter and went to film, or what was your path through college in getting you to experimental film?
uh, well, once again, one thing causes another. Uh, I always had summer jobs where I almost kind of a Tom Sawyer thing where I had these small little businesses that I could make, a quick $1,000. Uh, and so one summer I got a bunch of these old cable spools, and I refurbished and made like outdoor tables on them. And through that, I met an interior decorator who bought one. And to make a long story short, he gave me about 200, 300 copies of Popular Photography or some magazine of the day. So I started reading them, and then I started experimenting with the chemicals and built the home dark room. I was terrible at managing a dark room and chemicals, but I was decent at taking the picture. So it was, it was just self-taught photography because I couldn't paint and I couldn't draw. But I sort of found enough early entry books that, oh, photography, artist, that's legitimate. Oh, okay, I can take a picture. Okay. And then, then one thing led to another. But um, looking back on it, 40 years later, I sort of regret that I took the path of photography and film and video, all that heavy technical stuff. I wish my formation would have been in classic drawing and painting and sculpture, because I'm doing it backwards. I'm going back into sculpture and
Right.
working with the hands and material and trying to leave the video and digital behind. So
Yeah. No, that's interesting. It's sort of like McLuhan's fourth step of the tetrad. What does it flip into when pressed to an extreme? So that's the flip. But Richard, I'm curious, who did you first see? I mean, did you see normal movies and then saw experimental film and was more attracted to that, or were you seeing mainstream films and go, "Oh, I can do that," like specifically
yeah,
filmmaking?
it's pretty standard stuff in the 70s, small town, Ontario. It was a period of, there was interesting movies, Easy Rider, The Conversation, those kind
Right,
of movies. Uh,
right.
I'd be like 17 by then, so there's a sort of social coolness to see those movies.
Yeah,
But I didn't see an experimental film till I went back to school to the Sheridan College, which was a technical college,
and
and it
who'd
was
you see?
what's
Who'd
that?
you who did you see then? Like Michael Snow? Who made an impact on you, experimental film
Oh,
wise?
I remember it so well. I mean, it was a technical school, but we just happened to have teachers that were really into experimental film. It was kind of a freaky institutional
Yeah.
situation. But Paul Sheritz, I remember
Oh,
the
oh,
the
yeah.
first week, uh, Rick Hancock's my teacher, showed us Touching,
Yeah.
and I never looked back. I go,
Wow.
wow, and it was a sense. It was, I just felt it. I felt it. I mean, and there was a lot of, there's other ones, but Sheritz would be the strongest one I would remember. Uh, and it just, I said, okay, I can do this.
Yep.
This is not literally what Sheritz did, but it's 16 millimeter. I
Yep.
understood it. You could make this. There's a certain language and a history. And if you're good enough, someone will invite you to show it and talk about it. And it just seemed to fit the bill at that time of life, just independent, individualistic, sort of off the track. No one else was doing it, so.
Beautiful. Yeah, he's a great jumping off point. Incredibly not really well known, but important filmmaker. So Stanley Kubrick, or let's see, a screenwriting teacher told me a great film or great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great film or great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Well, I like to think I strive. I mean, though I generally work in abstraction in the bigger game, uh, I still think clarity is important. But that's the game. I mean, when you're dealing with abstraction, how does one be clear? You know, there's a fine line between when the sauce is ready and when it's overcooked. You know, so it's. But I put a value on clarity of intention.
Yeah.
Meaning is that's not even on the list for some reason these days. You know, you know, like what it means. You know.
Yeah. Well, this is the follow-up question is Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your audience when you're making your film or making your sculptures now? Yeah.
Um, when I get going, zero. But I mean, there's the stuff I make, like the stuff you see behind me, is sort of for sale, but it's not for sale. And it's so I like to think most of the stuff I make, it's sort of practical. Someone may want it someday.
Yeah.
Maybe some gallery will collect it when I hope to donate all this stuff somewhere,
Right.
you know. But I don't make things to say I'm going to go out and get this audience, and
Right.
certainly for my time based work, the films and videos, you know, I just assume if I like it, that there'll be 50 other people that'll like it.
Yeah. Beautiful. And McLuhan said everything we invent extends some humanness. So clothing extends our skin, knife and fork extends our teeth. The shutter in a camera is extension of our eyelid, like, philosophy's extension of our consciousness. What does 35 millimeter film extend for you? You've used it in your filmmaking, and now you use it in your sculptures. This plastic piece of film, what humanness is extended by it?
Well, it's an articulation of the touch, no?
Yeah.
It, it,
Wow.
it, I'm looking at them right now, and I don't look at them often, but you know, I can feel the touch. I kind of remember the touch.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. It extends
Yeah,
touch.
no, I mean, yeah, I
That's fine, Richard. It's funny because, most people I say, what does cinema extend for you or what does film extend for you? And, the evident thing is the eye. And McLuhan says, no, it extends your foot because you're traveling. So there's no right or wrong answers, but I'm glad you said that. This one guy said, he's a poet. I says, what does your pencil extend? And he goes, my tears. So Peter Greenaway said, cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. And are experimental filmmakers telling stories a different way or doing something completely different? Like if we watch Tony Conrad's The Flicker, it's just black and white flickering on and off. We could have a story go through our head, but he wasn't really saying, here's a script and I'm telling you this story. So, what do you think? I mean, this idea that cinema's been hijacked by storytellers, by narrative, pretty much for 100 of its 130 years. But there is what you use, abstract film. And I watched one of your films today on YouTube and I was just blown away. It took me so much back to my roots in going to the Ann Arbor Film Festival for half it's 60 years old in March. I've been going for 30 years and took me back way back to early Ann Arbor Film Festival where it was really an experience that you don't normally get in a movie theater. You're not seeing someone tell a story. So, what do you think? In your observations of experimental filmmakers, are they telling stories a different way or doing something else?
well, I mean, it's a slightly complex question because you say filmmakers, uh, but I assume you extend that to people that are working digitally. Uh,
Or
yeah, no,
even Jackson Pollock, he's doing abstract, So yeah, so go ahead.
yeah, but okay, take Pollock. I mean, I can stand in front of a Pollock or any abstract work and construct a narrative of the work. And is that the
Right.
same of the story?
That's a good
I mean,
question.
these words are in, people throw them around, then I revert to what's the best medium and why I'm not a big cinephile and why I don't, for me, the best form of a story is two people sitting across from each other at a table having a drink in that oral tradition of the story. Nothing
Yeah,
can beat that for me.
that's it.
No Martin Scorsese,
That's
no
it.
Terrence Malick, no. I'm sorry. I'm always aware. I'm in a theater. I'm watching a screen. It's not real. But
Yeah,
if I'm with you on Venice Beach having a drink at the cafe, you know, I can get lost in Jerry's world,
that is so
and
cool.
it's real. I feel the vibrations. I see your hair moving. I see your eye twitching. I know when you're bullshitting. I know when you're on, you know, and people undervalue that. It drives me fucking nuts. I'm for 40 years at film school, narrative, story. Of course, there's other things. Yes, and I mean we've seen the greatest day of abstraction in film. I think
Yeah.
so I don't know.
No, that was so well put because it really, that's what these Zooms have done over the last 2 years. I've been able to do these interviews even better than if we were on Venice Beach talking together because we're more concentrated. Our eyes would be wandering looking at the beautiful women roller skating by, and now we're more attentive. But I agree that face to face communication is the best, and that is what Marshall always said. He says the best communication is face to face verbal exchange. So
Yeah, no.
you
Listen,
really,
when I recorded him, as I say, I didn't know who he was. I just kind of knew the name, like
yeah,
a pop culture figure. But the minute I got in the room, set up the tripod, and sat 30 feet away from him, and he got into it. And I think the first thing he says, "I'm here to heckle audiences." I go, "I'm with you." And I couldn't take my eyes off him. I even at that young age, I knew this guy in the suit was the real deal, right?
wow, that is a great line. I'm here to heckle audiences. I had my mother-in-law once heckle me at a McLuhan lecture. I says, and now my mother-in-law will heckle me. And she stood up and she goes, "You nonconformists are all alike." So here's another one. We touched on this. What are the services and disservices of marginalizing experimental film? So Jackson Pollock was on the cover of Life magazine in 49. Regular folks could start forming an aesthetic on experimental painting. Then there was no Bruce Conner or Maya Deren or Michael Snow on Life magazine covers. Generally, it's privileged, I call them rich art kids, who develop an avant garde aesthetic and dominate the experimental film world. I would love to get your feeling on that, having you've been in the experimental film world for so many years, especially in regards to you choosing to be an educator as well as a maker.
Okay, so uh,
Well, it's more
what's the
like
question in there?
the question is like, why is it that, or not why, but isn't it so that it's more dominated by entitled kids who do experimental film? It's not like, it's like kids who get to go to art school. And so the genre has been sort of dominated and marginalized. And maybe it's not just that, but it goes to art galleries, which is Richie Rich. It goes to art museums, Richie Rich. And I'm not trying to demonize the rich. They support the arts, all the power to them. But it's not, been it's been a little more exclusive than inclusive. I mean, that's just if you've observed that. If you haven't, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean it. I don't think it's exclusive to class because I didn't come at it as a rich kid. Uh,
Right.
you know, it's not exclusively that, but it unfortunately that's probably in its history. But I don't want to play on that so much, but it as a form, if you just take American experimental film from the 50s to the 80s, it's pretty esoteric.
Right.
It takes a bit of work. Uh, there's a, there's a lot of theoretical wars around it, I suppose, in its short history.
Right.
Um, it it's pretty exclusive, but that's only a period of films, I think, and I don't know. As I got into it and started making more formal work, um, I never expected much of an audience. I used to glibly say, if I got like 20 people or 30 people, and that's what I would get wherever I showed, and I'd say, as long as I'm drawing more than the sound poets, I'm doing good. What can you expect? What can you expect from what can experimental filmmaker expect? They're making very esoteric work.
Right.
They're not, I mean, it's. I remember sort of an argument years ago. I mean, about experimental filmmakers that wanted to tell a story, have a political message. And I remember someone said, "Geez, if you want to." If its message so important, buy a newspaper or start a rock band. Don't make
Right.
experimental films. You know, the so I don't know. And that gets into the whole idea of audience.
Yeah.
And that's what we share too. Is Ann Arbor was my first audience of
Yeah.
experimental films. I mean, traveling down there and going at it for 4 or 5 days, and that experience has never been replaced.
It's a
That
really
was I didn't know it at the time, but the Ann Arbor years, because it was the culture. People were drinking in the audience, throwing shit at the screen, yelling at the films. And I go, as an ex-jock, I go, wow, this is great. This is fun. This is unbelievable. If you don't like the film, why can't you yell at it? I mean, I remember James Benning's 11 by 14. It's the first shot is 11 minutes long.
Yeah.
I was half in the bag, had a 6-pack, probably high on something. And I started booing the screen and yelling and then 20 minutes later, I was mesmerized by these long
Right.
takes. And I never looked back. I became a James Benning fan, It's just like,
That is beautiful.
so
What a
I don't
great
know.
story.
I
I'm
think
gonna I'm I'm gonna tell that story in Ann Arbor this year. That is a great
it's if you're an experimental filmmaker, don't take yourself seriously. Take
yeah.
what you do seriously.
That was beautiful. I really appreciate that. And so Michael Apted made a lot of films. 40 years ago, he made a documentary on a Russian rock star. And I asked him, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? He said, because we've learned to take in information faster. I said, well, most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it really flourished in the 80s with MTV. And Marty Scorsese said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. So my question is asked with a bias, Richard. Can humans literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
I think there's a limit, and certainly a body of my work. There's probably about 5 or 6 pieces that have been called accelerated cinema,
Yeah.
where I that was part of my formal experimentation, because I didn't see anyone else that was exploring that aspect of film. Uh, its ability to accelerate, its relationship to speed, uh, and certainly one of the pieces that I shot in around Venice Beach in LA, The Machine in the Garden, takes that to pretty much a limit, how much you can absorb, and through speed and all that stuff. So, but I think that there's a limit. I think and it's not my thought. It's something that I've learned. But and I forget the French theorist who came up with this. He wrote a book called America, Baudrillard, I think.
Yeah.
That at high speed, abstract patterns emerge.
Yeah.
And I took that concept in a once again a film that I shot in your area there, Cruel Rhythm. And the last 20 minutes plays with that concept
How cool. We
of
have,
just moving the camera so fast and the shutter and mounted on the car that it just becomes just pure color. The light, and it's shot in Las Vegas, right? So that's the subject matter, but all the lights in Vegas just become these color fields, almost Rothko-esque kind of thing, you know?
oh, I can't wait to watch that one. Thank you. And so the hidden question there, Richard, is really, can humans literally multitask?
Well, yeah, but no, it's temporal.
Yeah.
Uh, when you're a ball player, you at any given time, you're going to have to multitask.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, hitting a baseball has been described as one of the hardest physical things to do. So it's you're seeing, touch. I mean, yeah, there's so many things, but you can't sustain it. You can't.
Yeah.
I don't think a juggler can go on forever. You know,
Yeah.
so
What was the motive of the cave artist? Not what Herzog did in his doc or anthropologist, just your hunch.
boredom. I mean, nothing profound about that.
That's
What, what,
good.
what the hell are you going to do in a cave?
But one guy said last week, I says, what was the motive of the cave artist? He said, to keep people in the cave. So, um, do artists have a moral obligation?
To themselves, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. And then after that, I don't know. It's geez. But if you're not honest with yourself, and
Yeah.
where do you go from there? But it strikes me as that is a question that morality, when you throw that on the table. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, that's
that's
huge.
kind of what's screwing your country up right tonight, isn't it? This
Hello.
interpretation of morality,
Hello. Okay, what's more important, Richard, conviction or compromise?
conviction.
You've
What
accomplished.
if you're
Go ahead.
convicted, if you have conviction, you can work with compromise.
Yeah,
If you're compromised, you may never get that conviction.
got it. You've accomplished a lot. Rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Luck, skill, and ambition.
Yeah.
Skill at the very bottom, luck for sure. But let's try it this way. Branch Rickey, he's the guy that brought in Jackie Robinson and the Dodgers. He had an expression: "Luck is the residue of desire."
Wow.
So that gets 2 out of your 3.
Of desire. Well, I got a good one for you. This is like dueling quotes. Gary Palmer, the great golfer. The more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay. What T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
well, some sort of physicality, I would say,
Yeah.
is expressed that way.
Beautiful. George Manupelli, the founder of Ann Arbor Film Festival, his mantra was ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, said, I'm just a vehicle and this just comes through me. So, again, I know it's both and it depends, but just your overall hunch or impulse. Is art making more self expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technology or culture is dominant?
What's the first one again?
Is it more self expression or you're a vehicle?
You start in the morning with a bit of self-expression, but then the latter part takes over.
Then takes over.
It has to.
Yeah.
You have to hit that point of a type of stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Like I work in the studio in 4-hour stretches on my feet. Somewhere in there, I got to hit a sweet spot of time.
Yeah.
Where I'm almost unconscious.
Yes.
And
Wow.
then I know I'm hitting the pitches then. But
Wow.
that may only last for 40 minutes within that 4 hours.
Yeah.
But that's the sweet spot. You've hit it.
We call it the chewy caramel center.
There you go. There you go.
Can art making be egoless?
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, I'd have to think about that more, but I'd have to understand the meaning of ego in this sense. But
No, that's a great
yeah,
answer. Actually, that's the
I,
answer I'm fishing for, Richard, because most people say no. But one person said years ago, great art is egoless. So it's, of course there's ego involved, and it's how much you believe Freud. And then, my follow-up question sometimes is, was Freud right? Because, just because the guy invented the word ego, everybody believes that's what exists, you know.
yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah, I would think one would aspire to that when I think about it.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
yeah, yeah, that's totally it. And so, next question, is perception reality?
no, 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 no. I like to think perception is once again is temporal and can't be sustained at a high level.
Yeah,
Uh, but you could be looking at something and think it's something else. And light transforms, right? Mirages, all these sort of things. So, I don't know.
yeah,
Looking at art, some days I think I see things, other days I see different things.
yeah. It's beautiful. Lewis Carroll said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Have I believed in any impossible? No, my answer, no, I'm too stoic for that. I think, I don't know what exactly you mean by an impossible thing.
No, that's good.
I,
We can
I, I, I think there's things that people would say that are impossible that you can do,
right.
but I don't think that's what you mean.
Yeah. It's funny because I love this Sun Ra quote. The impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change.
Yeah.
So, Richard, tell me one element of your creativeness that's changed and one element that stayed the same in the last decades of you doing it.
um, well, if it's over, say, 20 years, much more intuitive. Uh, a lot goes back to we were talking about early in the game here. Less meaning, more being.
Yeah.
Um,
So that
yeah,
stayed the
get it and getting things done, like starting something and getting it done. Uh, because I tend to work through ideas, right? I have an idea and I work through it for a few months and then I move on to something else. So I want to get that idea out of my head. And, so.
but that's what's changed. What stayed the same?
Oh, just the discipline to get up in the morning and go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I'm a morning guy and I liked my day done by noon hour. You
Yeah.
know, then I know everyone else is just sort of warming up.
Yeah.
And I know I've got my 4 hours in by noon, and so.
Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Hyperactivity.
And how is it a strength?
It can turn into extreme focus for a sustained period of time.
Really well put. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When you acknowledge it, and it's good to get angry, acknowledge it, put it in a box, and put it just off screen, and then move forward.
That is,
Because anger, like worrying, won't accomplish anything.
yeah. You create what you resist. I'm not saying you, Richard, but there's a saying that goes, one creates what one resists. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, said, you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you disbelieve. You say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. Thank God I'm an atheist. What do you think of this line? What you resist persist, or you create what you resist. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's bullshit.
Way to go.
I mean, I don't know.
That's fine.
I don't believe every quote an artist writes.
No, I know. I'm not, well, believe me, just because that's like McLuhan says, just because I said this doesn't believe I believe it. Or
It sounds so angsty. It's
yeah,
I
it
mean,
is. It
not
is
all
angry.
art is to work out your demons and your angst.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, the first part of my art making career was all full of questioning, darkness, existentialism. And at a certain point, I said, "Fuck that! I want to work with color." You
Nice.
know, I mean, yeah, I only get one run at this show, and I don't want to be that angsty existential guy. I want to work that existential shit out real early in my life, you
That
know?
is beautiful. Where'd you get that from? The way you were raised or on your own? How did you come to know that and practice that?
Well,
What
it all goes back when when the floor drops out on your family, your parents just aren't there one day. Your
Yeah,
brother's not there anymore, and you're
yeah,
on your own. You just you get formed, right?
yeah,
You learn who to trust, not to trust.
yeah.
It's there's all sorts of cliches, and you just got to sort shit out, or I don't know. I don't know. You just part of
Well,
it's not looking back, looking forward, like we talked about.
well, it's perfect anticipation. The next question. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I mean, to lighten it up, you're going to have a hell of a lot of fun. You're going to meet some interesting people, but it would go back to what my mother said: don't lie.
Oh, nice.
I mean, you start lying, and then the whole fabric falls apart.
But this is
Lying is the gateway to all bad shit.
I mean, but this is amazing because right here is my next question is, on what occasion do you lie? And that's Marcel Proust. Marcel Proust asked that question. So I'm curious, on what occasion do you lie?
uh, I'm gonna go back to the dictionary on what exactly is a lie.
Yes, you're answering a question with a question. That is
Yeah,
good.
what exactly is a lie?
Yeah.
If I've been accused, like I like to tell stories face to face, right? Did I lose you? Okay,
No,
there
I
you
just
go.
had to turn the light on. Sorry.
Okay, there we go. And I've been accused of stretching the story to make it better,
Yeah.
right? Is that a lie?
No, that's yeah.
You know,
That's
it,
elaborating
but
imagination.
but I have lied at many occasions, and I would lie tomorrow to protect a friend.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I work in a very toxic environment at a university, and I'll lie anytime to protect my staff.
yeah,
If I'll have to take the hit for the lie,
yeah,
but that lie has a certain currency. But
yeah,
I won't lie about my age. I won't lie about how I feel.
yeah.
I won't lie. Anyway.
Well, no, that was well put.
But as a
Rich,
kid, I lied my ass off. So
yeah,
that's
yeah. Richard, I asked for 90 minutes. We just got a few more. Can you go a little more, like 10 or 15 more minutes?
Yep, yeah, sure.
Okay. So, can you forget to die?
Well, I think that's one of the objectives of living.
Yeah,
Is that I mean, I'd be curious to know, how many. I've never come across this, but how many times a day do people think about dying?
yeah,
I don't know. You know, I, I don't know. I know what's coming. I'm going to be 70, and that's the decade, that you get the bad news, and kind of thing, and it's coming. So but I try not to think about it these
yeah,
days. It's part of my prayers is not to think about dying.
yeah. Beautiful. How do you find peace of mind?
um, I don't aspire to find peace of mind.
Yeah,
If it comes, it's great.
yeah,
But it gets back to I have one life, and it's I mean, I have peace of mind more or less. I mean, I don't, I'm not too weirded out about any one thing in life. It's come. It's been interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell do I expect?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I mean, when I think that, I get very sober because you and I are very privileged in the scheme of 6 billion people in life. We're way up on the ladder, my friend.
We're
So
lucky.
yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. It's
We're
it's
very lucky, and I appreciate that. It's
yeah.
well,
So
it's great, Richard, that you're willing to say it and we can acknowledge it and hope for the best for everyone. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
I really want to say nothing, but it
That's good.
sounds it
No,
sounds
that
insulting. It sounds insulting somehow. It
no,
sounds
it's not insulting. It's
eh,
the answer I'm fishing for. I love when people say nothing. It's
but
amazing. Yeah,
we're all humans.
that's
It's.
it.
I mean, it'd be kind of, pardon the word, but it'd be kind of bitchy to say that there's differences.
Of course, and
I
it's
mean,
like,
there's obvious differences, I guess. I don't know, but
yeah. No, that was fine. Now, these are 5 quick Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head. Don't think about it too much in just a couple words. Who started it all?
so you want an answer?
Yeah,
Uh, okay, who started it all? Who started? uh, it was a dust up. It was a dust up out there sometime long ago.
perfect. Are we going to make it?
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's an ego question. Who
Yeah.
gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? We're gonna make it. You
Okay,
know,
third one.
only
Third
you, me,
one.
and the audience care about. Are we gonna
Yeah.
make it? No one else cares.
Okay, third one. Where do we put it?
Oh, well, I would think back and good.
Oh, nice. Who's cleaning it up?
Oh, well, I would say it's been one continuum since they walked out of the cave that we all clean it up one after another. We're all constantly trying
Nice.
to clean it up, and
Dude, that's Bucky Fuller all the way. We're all crew, no passengers.
yeah, pretty much. I get that.
Okay, the last Alan Watts question is it serious?
No,
Very good. Now a couple more and we're out of here. Richard, this has really been fun. I appreciate it. Should toilet paper come off the roll over or under?
over, over
Why? Why?
aesthetics.
Nice. If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Well, I'm going to steal a line. I am nothing. Who are you?
Oh, that's good. Who said it?
Emily Dickinson.
Oh, that is nice, Emily. Beautiful. They want to scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography. What smell would it be?
Glue.
Oh, they
Look,
want
what
to
do I get? A perfume? A scented book?
have so they want to also have some of the ink color, not always black. What other color would you have on some of the ink?
Go dark blue.
Nice. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Wood, and it would be deep in the woods somewhere.
Nice. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good that I never had, that I never want. Something good. Well, eyeglasses. I've never had, just always have dollar store eyeglasses.
You mean prescription glasses?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, good.
Oh, dude, that's the same as me. I went to the so I was having headaches and they said, go to the eye doctor. I went to the eye doctor and he said, you got to go to the 99-cent store and buy $1, eyeglasses. And I goes, great. It cost me $100 for him to tell me to go buy $1 glasses.
Exactly the same story. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could give you a better answer, but
Oh no, that was a great answer. I
yeah, I
agree.
just don't own things. I just don't own things, so
Yeah,
it's.
smart. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Try not to drown. I, I mean, it wouldn't matter that it's vomit or shit after 30 seconds. I mean, the idea is to get out.
Get out. Yeah, that was one of my favorite answers ever was the guy says, I wouldn't be in a situation like that.
Yeah, well, I never understood the Shawshank Redemption where he has to climb through a mile of sewer. I go, hey, he's getting out.
Right, right. Well, the friend who taught me that question, it's great because it's sort of like a metaphor for life in one way. We're in a vat of vomit and people are throwing bags of shit at our face. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, come on. That's a little that's a little harsh.
Little.
I don't feel that. I mean,
That's
I don't
good.
know. That's pretty thin-skinned.
Well, that's sort of back to McLuhan. Uh, they said, "Are you an optimist or a pessimist?" He says, "I'm an apocalypse. We're fucked." He didn't say fuck, but he sort
Yeah,
of said, but he was knowing, like you said, he explored the etymology of the word. Apocalypse means to reveal. He was like Toto in The Wizard of Oz, the atomic dog. He's saying, "I'm just pulling the curtain back. You decide.
yeah,
Let's explore this.
yeah, exactly.
So just a couple more. And Richard, I'm curious on you went through the phase of making films and then you got into a thing called weaving. Now you weave. Where did the weave idea come from? Because I'm really intrigued with weaving. Laurie Anderson has a piece of art where she took the New York Times and the Chinese equivalent to the New York Times and cut them into strips
Oh,
and wove them together. And I just think this idea of weaving is sort of a unique art form. It's been used for centuries. But what got you to weaving? What was the sort of impetus to use
well,
that as a medium? Yeah.
well, just a little pre-story. I started these weavings in the early '90s. At the time, I was producing and directing a large budget feature film with actors, unions, lawyers, the whole shebang, right? And that was a very, very awful experience in every which way. I was able to raise the money, but had no sense of that machinery of dramatic film. So it broke me. It was at a period when things were going well in my art practice. I took on this deal with the devil to make a commercial film, well, an independent commercial film,
Yeah.
and it broke me. I knew I had to find something to fix myself. I couldn't, a lot of people would just quit and go canoeing or something, I wasn't going to give up the game. I had put too much into it. I was a teacher. Uh, I just was having a failure, a colossal $500,000 failure. I was in, jumped. I'm in my office one day in Saskatchewan. Uh, One of my students brings in a shoebox full of Hollywood trailers that he found in a abandoned drive-in. I had a piece of plexiglass in my office. We were joking around. I took a piece of film up and I did a little hatch across them. Did another one. I held it up to the light and I said, "We have something here."
Nice.
And and then we looked at it. I go, "Okay, it's new to me, but what I've just invented for myself is the oldest form imaginable, weaving." And then I started making these big ones, 4 feet by 8 feet, and the physical process, the hand to eye, everything about the weaving game appealed to me. And then there's the whole tradition. Then we get back to McLuhan in the tape that you have of McLuhan. He talks about weaving as language.
Yeah.
So there was that collection. And
Yeah.
if you were ever to see my weavings, there's different styles. Yes, there's built-in language. I use text. I use words. I use color, rhythm as language. So to me, the weaving, to me, is the real filmmaking.
Yeah.
All my camera-related films that took money and this sort of thing, they were secondary. When I look back on it, to me, the real cinema that I've made is the 100 weavings that I've made, and that's the real game. And it's something that I've sort of taken a very old form and made it new. So I feel very good about that.
Yeah. Richard's really well put, and people listening can go to your website, which is listed here, and see reproductions of your weavings and see links to your films like your McLuhan film and your experimental film.
It's all there for free.
So we encourage people to check that out. And Joseph Boyce said, make the secrets productive. Lou Welsh said, guard the secrets, but constantly reveal them. But it was Thornton Wilder in 1928. He said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes, and I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this, but what's it really all about for you?
It's the process of making something.
Yeah.
What you see behind me is just happens to be what I make.
Yeah.
Because of conditions and turns that I've made in life. Let's put it this way. In the art world, I just may revere, in the highest order might be the folk artist.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the game, after I've now studied for years about the art market, professional, Jeff Koons, all the histories.
Yeah.
Sometimes I drive down the country road where I live and you come across some guy that's carving ducks or and I go, that's the game.
Yeah.
So to me, it's getting up in the morning and making something and feeling satisfied. If it has any relationship to an art world, that's fine. That's someone else's job to get it out there. I just make it. I don't promote it.
Dude, a couple things were, both Andy Warhol and Marshall said art is anything you get away with. But Andy said, don't worry about what people think about your art. Just keep making it.
Yeah.
And it's like the process. But Marshall nailed it. He said the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can. That's it.
You
You
can't
just
beat that.
yeah, you can't beat that.
Yeah, because it's well, it's where where does art stop and end?
Yeah. It's just like you get your life and your job as mixed up as possible.
Yeah.
And so just two more. Thank you, Richard. I really appreciate this time and I learned a lot and I laughed a lot. That's what I like. I know when I'm laughing, I'm learning.
Okay.
So, what's a cultural shift you see developing today that has an impact on you?
Well, once again, I mean, I have a pretty basic life. My life is in my studio and in my classroom. And so I see a real potential cultural shift with the success of digital media culture, that it may just implode on itself and there may be a return to the tactile.
Yeah.
I kind of think there's so much media, information, media art, that it just may be caving in on itself. And
Yeah.
I can see a day when people will want to walk in the forest again rather than sit in front of a screen.
Yeah.
I can't see this digital culture in sustaining and accelerating forever.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
Love it. That was beautiful. Last question, Richard. Thank you. What gives you the most optimism?
Well, the idea of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what that can bring.
Yeah.
So that, it's just the idea of tomorrow. I think just
Yeah.
to be general about it.
Super cool. Thank you, Richard. I really appreciate it. I'm going to hit the end button, but I hope this never ends. Let's keep up our dialogue and it's sure been fun spending this time with you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And you're in Venice Beach, right?
Venice Beach, man. It's been amazing. We have a Venice Film Festival every year, and I'm going to link your Venice films. What are the titles of the films that you shot in Venice? The
Cruel Rhythm.
Cruel Rhythm, and then you said another one, The Machine in the Garden.
Machine in the Garden and Last Days of Contrition.
Those three.
Yep.
How cool.
Well, and the new one I sent you, Field Trip.
Oh, that has Venice footage too?
Oh, the last 20 minutes is all Venice Beach. You'll probably recognize some people in it.
Last Days of Contrition.
Okay, I'll explain. Like Last Days of Contrition, Cruel Rhythm are about American military culture.
Okay.
And then Field Trip is sort of it's with the Morton Feldman soundtrack, and it's sort of my summation of my preoccupation with American culture.
Oh, how cool.
It's my going away card.
Beautiful. I look forward to seeing
all of them have scenes in Venice Beach.
That is beautiful. What's your McLuhan tape called?
McLuhan.
That's it. Yeah. Okay, we will definitely look up all those and encourage people to watch them and go to your website. Thank you, Richard Kerr. That was amazing. Thank you.
I'll look you up in Venice Beach.
Can't wait to see you live someday.
Okay, Gary. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Bye.